Everybody, my name is Jeff. Um, I don't usually do video blogs, but I figured, being that it's the 20th anniversary of 9/11, um, I feel that for myself, for my daughter, um, and just for whoever is interested, for what happened on 9/11, what led up to it, and basically my experience from that point until what's been going on right now. Um, may not interest anybody, but I felt it was important to record this stuff before I get too old and forget. um, excuse me. So this year is it's been a tough one. Bit bittersweet. Most of our boys are back home. Thank God. It's way overdue. Unfortunately, we left a lot of our allies over there. I'm glad we're out, but the way it was done was just a gigantic intelligence failure. It was going to be a shit show no matter what, but they could have done a better job. This was straight politics. The military had options, but the politicians. Anyway, excuse my language, but it was a clusterfuck. But in a way, it's given me some closure, and I think it's given a lot of other veterans some closure. Um, Regardless of what's happening now, and all the people that sacrificed so much, not just for our country, but for their country too. Um, you know, I felt I feel that it was a success. Um, more people got educated. More people saved people's lives. There were no major terrorist attacks in the United States since 9/11. So people that are out there saying that this was a loss, I think that's bullshit. You know, we, uh, we kept the barbarians at bay for 20 years for the most part, and they'll think twice before trying it again, but they will. Anyways, politics and all that stuff aside, I'd like to start with what happened on 9/11. Um, so I graduated in 2001 from Highland High School. Um, it was a pretty fun year. We took the state football championships. Very proud of. I was very proud of that at the time. Still am, I guess. Um, I went to my parents and I went and talked to Marine recruiter. Went and talked to the Navy recruiter. I wanted to be some kind of spec ops. I wanted to be Marine recon, Navy SEAL. All that shit. Airborne didn't matter. I wanted to do the real deal. Luckily, my father sat down and had a talk about it. Um, and he's from the Vietnam era. He didn't serve, but he remembers a lot of his friends that didn't come back. Um, and he said, "Look, Jeff, you're smart enough. You can go to the Air Force. And I always loved jets. I always loved planes, and so I went to talk to the Air Force recruiter. Sounded a lot better deal. We were at peace. There wasn't a war going on, and I wanted to go see the world, and I wanted to you know, work on fighter jets and do all that. Top Gun is one of my favorite movies. Top Gun 2 is coming out soon. I can't wait for that. Um, so I signed the dotted line. I think it was around July July or August of 2001 after I graduated, and and I was going to be a tactical aircraft maintenance mechanic or a crew chief, basically. Uh, and so I was pretty excited. I was nervous, very nervous. Hadn't been a whole lot of places outside of Idaho. I went to the East Coast of California when I was young, but but yeah, it was going to be a new experience, and it sure as shit was. So the morning of 9/11, I was scheduled to leave for basic training in November, and so I was getting ready. I was getting in the best shape of my life. I went. I worked at my father's warehouse, um, at one of the businesses that he worked at. I just did some part-time labor there, make a few extra bucks, and I got up early that morning. It was dark. It was windy. It was a little cold, and it was just I don't know what it was. I just had there was a bad vibe. Um, but I dismissed it and pressed on. Had a good run, and I come home. My mom's watching the TV, and there was smoke coming from one of the towers, and kind of freshening up on aircraft stuff and things like that. That's stuff like that doesn't just happen. My mom thought maybe it was an accident or something was screwed up. Um, I wasn't sure either, um, but but that would have to be a pretty big deal. And we were watching it live, just me and my mom, and thought maybe it was just an accident. Who knew? Who knows? As we were watching it live, I was still sweaty from the run, but I didn't care. I was trying to figure out what was going on. Newscasters didn't know. And right before our eyes, we watched the second plane hit the tower, and I just remember the fireball. Um, when I was 13, I've been to those towers. I went to the top, and they were so huge. I remember it very, very vividly. Um, and to see a fireball that size, um, and to see a second plane hit, I immediately knew we were under attack. Um, I was just speechless. Immediately, my mother started crying, um, and I was just in shock. Trying to even the newscasters at the time were they were pretty speechless. They didn't know what was happening. Um, Towards the end, um, you could start seeing people people jumping instead of getting burned alive. But then shortly after that, the news feeds they started editing it, um, so that people didn't see too much horrific stuff. Um, I just remember putting my arm around my mom, and And after a few days and after a few um, investigations, watching George W. Bush give his famous bullhorn speech. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Um, let's just say this shit got really real for me. You know, I think my mom told me she didn't want me to go. I think she was talking. You know, she was emotional. But you know, I could have backed out, but I was like, no way, hell no. Um, we were at war, and this is the biggest attack on the United States since World War II, since Pearl Harbor. Now, I'm not going to get into the conspiracy theories and all that stuff. There's no need for that. It really doesn't matter. What happened, happened. Politics is politics. All I knew is that we were going to war, and it was going to get real, real fast. And it fucking did. The day after 9/11, watching the towers fall. Um, I went into work that day. Everybody was at least an hour late watching the news. I was the first one there. Um, but anyways, the next day, there was such a sense of patriotism and unity and love for our country and love for each other. It was pretty incredible. Um, that day, it affected all of us. They say that countries like Japan, countries like Germany and Russia after World War II, it was a country of traumatized people, and it was entire populations were horrified, scared, but it brought people together. After the dust settled, and you know, finding out all these facts about what happened, the Pentagon getting hit, the plane over Pennsylvania. Um, well, yeah, I may have some inside baseball on what happened with that one, but I'm not going to go there. Um, so, anyways, it was go time. I've never worked out harder in my life. I was dedicated. I was ready to go, and I was scared, straight up. We didn't know exactly what we were facing. Intelligence was scrambling. you know, Politicians were trying to do their thing, which they usually screw it all up. Um, so anyway, I went to basic training in November. Um, actually, let me back up. Before that, I remember, I think it was the World Series. or one of the baseball playoff games, and I remember the Patriots um, playing, and just epic stuff. The whole crowd was on their feet. Everybody loved their country. You know, the Jets flew over, and you know, Tom Brady was just, it was awesome. I just remember, I can't remember the video, but I have to find it. But there's such unity and such togetherness. Like Hirohito, after they bombed Pearl Harbor, said, you know, I think we awoke a sleeping giant. Well, that's exactly what they did. Again, um, and so I went to basic training, and it was a wartime basic training. Yeah, it was the Air Force. Yeah, you know, it wasn't Marine Corps boot camp, but it kicked my ass. I've been in scouts. I've been played some pretty competitive sports in very good shape, and this was rough. They're preparing us for war, even though we were in the Air Force, you know. And the Air Force gets a bad rap a lot of times. They call it Chair Force, which is pretty funny. But um, you know, and I'm not going to be out there saying I was gung ho or anything like that. You know, I did what I had to do. It was the first time in my life that I was the minority. Um, you know, and all kinds of different walks of life, and that really opened my eyes, and it was a really great experience, honestly. Kind of gave me a better understanding of what was out there in our country, kind of what other people struggle with, and you know, some of the racial stuff, and you know, I should say I was a pretty ignorant, maybe a little ethnocentric, um, and I learned a lot, and really opened my eyes, made me a better person for it. Um, I so anyway, we finished that. Went to Wichita Falls, Texas. It's up in the Panhandle. It's a shithole to do our training, and that was fun. I guess I don't know. It was just a lot of mechanic work, a lot of testing, a lot of attention to detail. You know, we're not working on Humvees here. We're working on $65 million aircraft. So we had to know our shit. Um, and we had to be good because people got booted a lot. If they weren't competent enough to work on those jets, they were gone, straight up. um, so did that. Went to Panama City, Florida for our final. It was called hot training. We worked on actual uh, fighter jets that were flying in. We were around it. You know, learned how to taxi the aircraft. We were the guys that saluted the pilots right before they took off. Made sure everything was working. Flight controls, everything. In communication with the flight crew. Um, you know, and that was that. Uh, Florida was a lot better. Florida was a lot better place than Texas. Let me tell you that. But Panama City, we had a lot of fun down there. Maybe a little bit too much fun, but yeah. And and so first thing I wanted to do is you can have an option. You can apply to go stateside, or you can apply to go overseas. I'm like, well, shit, I want to travel. You know, I want to go see the world. I've always wanted to see the world. So I applied for overseas. Um, first choice was England. Second choice was Japan in Okinawa. I got England. So I went to Lakenheath, England, which was about 80 clicks or 80 miles, 80 kilometers as they use over there, from London, north of London. And that's where we went to work. Had a great time, made some connections with people that are lifelong. Some really good friends. Went through some really tough times. You know, I was only 19. Well, alcohol was, I think the drinking age is 16 over there now or some shit. I don't know. So drinking was a big factor. That's just kind of what the military culture was about. You know, you work hard, you drink hard, you play hard. So we were there. You know, got more in depth with the aircraft. I got promoted. It's called Airman Below the Zone, which means I was chosen above my peer class to get promoted, which I didn't think I deserved, but apparently, I got it. So it's pretty cool. So they put me on the flagship. I worked on F-15 Eagles. They're interdiction fighters, so they're designed to fight their way in, um, bomb their target, and then be able to fight their way out. Amazing aircraft. So it was tough work, though. Those things are very sketchy. You got to be very careful. And if something happens, a plane goes down or somebody gets hurt, well, guess what? You're under investigation. You're probably going to go into the brig for a while if you, I don't know, they'll test you for drugs, all that stuff. So you got to be on your toes. So did that, and from there, that's when we knew the war was kicking off. Uh, we Afghanistan was kind of starting. It was already started, but it was getting even more in depth. And then we decided to go into Iraq. Whatever opinions you have about that after the fact, it is what it is. Didn't matter. It was just we were there for our boys. We were there for each other. One second. So we went to. I'll never forget this. One of our master sergeants, one of the head guys, got all of our crew into the office, shut the door behind him. We all knew it was coming. All the jets were hangared. We hangared all the jets. Obviously something was up. Put them all in the bunkers. They still have those old World War II bunkers. If you look closely on some James Bond films and a few other movies, that's Lakenheath. It's an old school base, and we put us all in one room and talked to us, and basically just said, "This is it. It's time to put your game faces on. Excuse my language, but no more fucking around. This is it. They're not going to be flying over friendly territory, over, some goat farm in northern England or something. We're going to be flying over hostile territory with people that will chop your head off." So it was definitely game time. So we hang in the jets, made sure they were all ready to go. We had to get some special equipment to handle with the sand and the heat. These were top of the line aircraft. These were some of the best. And so we went to a base called Qatar in Al Udeid. Qatar, Qatar, whatever. place called Al Udeid, and had our jets there. We flew on a C5, which is with all of our gear, all of our equipment at the bottom, and up top is basically like a 727 seating arrangement, but it's reversed, right? No windows, and we flew. It was hot. It was noisy. It sucked. We flew from Lakenheath to an undisclosed base in Spain. That one was kind of hush hush during the time. Then from Spain, we flew straight to Qatar. And I remember thinking it was hot on the plane. And as soon as we got off the plane, walking down the steps, all of our gear, I just remember, God, what a shithole. No wonder those people are pissed off all the time. That place sucks, you know? It was hot, 120, 130. And so when we got there first, got everything set up, then the fighters came in, made sure we were all ready to go. We had in between we had these giant berms, probably 20, 30 feet high berms, and in between was an overhang, basically for shade. We were very lucky to get that. The F-16 guys were out in the sun, which had to have just sucked. Marines didn't get shit. We were very lucky to have that. However, it was still hot. You know, you get 8 aircraft, 8 F-15s, getting ready to take off, and it's already 120 degrees. I mean, we're talking heat that I probably lost 20 pounds just walking around and working. It was go time. I'll never forget the very first loaded up aircraft with live weapons, smart bombs, JDAMs, and every once in a while, it wasn't a Moab, but it was a big. They dropped some big bombs. They had a fuel tank on one wing, and on the other wing, they had this bomb. I mean, it was. I've never seen anything like it. And I remember launching off my first aircraft with the pilots, and it was strictly business. They knew where they were going. They knew they were going over hostile territory, and they knew they were going to go kill people. So it was exciting. It was also very humbling, and the reality kind of hit of like what we were doing. Of this is the real deal, and you know, before the plane takes off, make sure that everything's secured, all the bombs, everything like that. The weapons guys took care of that, and you just kind of think like the next person this bomb touches, it's gonna explode. I mean, they're gonna be dead. Just kind of a weird, humbling feeling. And you know, our relationship with the pilots during that time was it was a little more. They were kind of, you know, fighter pilots are cocky. That's just what they are. They have to be. You know what I mean? In England, you know, just kind of cocky. It was what it was. They're officers, you know. But then when we were overseas during that stuff, you know, we kind of had developed a little bit of a relationship with them. They were officers and we were enlisted, so the relationship can only, you know, it is what it is. But they knew that their lives were in our hands. That we had to make sure those aircraft were top of the line, ready to go. If not, I mean, it'd be a disaster. Um, the one of the one of the squadrons that were there before us, they lost a jet. I think it was one of the first F-15s shot down, something like that. Maybe the second, I can't remember. They lost a jet, so shit was real. Um, we uh, we dropped so many, so many goddamn bombs. Flight after flight after flight. It was in the invasion of Iraq. It was in 2003. Anyway, after the infrastructure of Iraq pretty much was nothing. Um, some of the flights died down a little bit. We were able to take some time off. We were able to watch. They got by that time they had the beer tent set up. We could watch some football, so that was pretty cool. Talking shit. We had Thanksgiving, and we shipped a lot of our Air Force. Got treated great. I mean, we had over $1 billion. Had at least been over $1 billion of gear. So we got treated well. They gave us a huge Thanksgiving dinner. We were able to watch football. Half the stuff, though, we sent over to the A-10 squadron that were actually in Iraq, and to some of the Army guys over there because they didn't have a whole lot of stuff. So we weren't supposed to, but we did. And for some reason I got picked. Did such a hell of a good job. We had 100% bombs on target. At least that's what they said. And they have these things called incentive flights, where the crew chief or whoever can get in the back of a fighter and just go for a little ride. Well, since we were in the desert and things were kind of hush hush, they were able to sneak me into the back seat. Had to get fitted with the suits. They're air pressured suits, so they squeeze your legs and your stomach to keep to keep blood and oxygen in your brain, so you don't pass out because you pull some G-forces. I mean, it's Top Gun shit. So I got strapped up. Was lucky enough to be one of the guys that got one, and yeah, I remember we flew over Doha. Interesting place. Very. There's wealth, and then there's just absolute poverty, just breathtaking poverty like you've never seen. It was pretty terrible. When we flew over Doha, we did all kinds of crazy shit. It was called a tactical takeoff, where you're at the end of the runway, lift off, gear goes up, throttle up, pull back, 10,000 feet in what, 5 seconds? Something like that, 8 seconds, I don't know, can't remember. And it was incredible. I go on roller coasters and stuff nowadays, and I'm just like, meh, whatever. It's called a combat descent. We're going probably about 10, 15,000 feet, something like that, 10,000. And when you go down, you don't go down like this in a jet aircraft, because you're going down so fast, you're gonna puke. I puked anyway, but so they call it combat descent. So you're going, flip upside down, you go all the way down. Next thing you know, we're about 500 feet off the deck, just buzzing just buzzing these little goat farms and shit. And these poor Arab or whatever the hell they were, shepherds. Just like, what the hell? You know, looked like they were from biblical times. You know, it was pretty funny. Uh, anyway, I puked my guts out. Had a great time. We got up in the air, and the pilot let me take the stick a little bit and did a couple of loop-de-loops and screwed around a little bit. It was an absolute blast. Pulled, I think, 8.3 G-forces, I think it was. That's 8.3 times your weight. I weigh 220 pounds, so that's a lot. I remember like feeling like my eyeballs were getting sucked into my head. I remember everything kind of going dark. But I didn't pass out. I was close. Anyway, we landed, and I was sicker than a dog. I was throwing up, and this pilot, he was kind of a dick. I mean, he was cool, but he was just messing with us. I had the bag, and I'm like, oh man, I'm sick. He's like, all right, we're gonna go in for a landing. Get your back. I'm like, okay. And I was just, oh god. And he's like, psych. So he just did like a mock thing, and then flew right up over the thing. He did a pass, and I remember going up and just going, blah, just in the bag, like as we were going up. I'm like, oh my god, dude. You know, luckily I didn't puke in the mask and everything. But anyway, so this is a pretty long video. Sorry about that, but you know, it was an interesting time, and pretty terrible time, to be honest with you, with some of the things that were happening over there. You know, seeing some of the soldiers that were on the front lines coming back over to Al Udeid, to where we were at, talking to them, hearing their stories. You know, we buying beer. You know, kind of giving them some comfort a little bit. It was pretty heartbreaking. You know, you see the planes. You know, the planes that had the caskets, the flags draped over them. I never got to go in there and see it. It's not a thing you just go and look at. You could just tell. You just knew what they were. Just kind of really made you think about things. A couple times there were some scares that we thought that you know, Saddam had weapons of mass destruction. You know, we had a couple of air raids. At least we thought. It's hard to say. Who knew what their intelligence was telling them? And you're like, holy shit! Like, is my face gonna melt off? Like, did Saddam just launch a scud with nerve gas in it at us? You know what I mean? I was just a kid, man. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know if Iran was gonna join the fight, which is right across the Persian Gulf. I mean, it would have been gnarly. There's a lot of uncertain times back then. We definitely didn't know what we know now. But I do remember this. Our very last day. The jets took off. They're gone. We were wrapping everything up. We were getting ready to get on the C5. We were chilling. We were having a few beers. You know, some Aussie guys were there, which are great. Aussies are awesome. Love partying with those dudes. And the very last day, they caught Saddam Hussein. They caught him in a little infested rat hole where he belonged. And they caught him, and we just went nuts. Like, the whole place just went, the whole beer tent, everybody just went nuts. It was really cool. It was awesome. Marines went. It was just a great time. And then we got on the plane. I didn't shave for a couple days, and I got my ass chewed. Said I had to go to the bathroom in the aircraft to shave, because the commander was going to meet us as we got off the plane. Anyway, we finally made it back to England, and sure enough, the commander was there shaking everybody's hand, saying good job, kind of gave us a little hug. He was I want to say he was a one-star, 2-star general. Maybe he was a full bird. I can't remember exactly, but I didn't really give a shit at that moment. I was just glad to be in Western civilization. I got back to my apartment, my dorm room they had for us, and the cooler weather, and the humidity, and the food, and the showers. It's just amazing how much we take for granted. So they gave us about a week off to kind of decompress. And I was back in England. Shortly after that, I had a bunch of leave saved up, and I had a bunch of money saved up, because you're not spending a whole lot of money in the middle of the goddamn desert. And I scheduled some leave, and none of my friends wanted to go. I don't know why. They all wanted to sit at the pub and get hammered, but I was like, screw this, man. I'm in Europe. So I took 30 days of leave and I backpacked Europe, and it was amazing, just amazing. I've been to Paris. Went to Paris a couple times while I was over there. This trip I went from Paris to Bruges, Belgium, Amsterdam, which was fun. Let's just say it was fun. That's all I'm going to say. Amsterdam to Munich, Germany. Went and saw the Bavarian Alps. Absolutely breathtaking. And this is a crazy story. I remember sitting at a beer hall, and y'all kind of sit in a community. And I think there was like a Japanese couple and some Americans, and I sat next to an old German gentleman, and he was an older guy, and he told me he flew. We were talking about planes and stuff, and he told me that he flew. I think he said bombers or something for the Luftwaffe during World War II. I'm like, holy shit. So I'm sitting at this beer hall, and it was in Munich, and we got to talk, and he's like, yeah, Hitler spoke in this beer hall that you're sitting at right now. And I was just like, oh, damn. So that was a pretty interesting experience. A lot of history, a lot of amazing stuff. And from Munich, I went to Interlaken, Switzerland, with skydiving in the Alps in Switzerland, which was wild. Then I went from there to Innsbruck, Austria, which was like going back in time. It was like going back to the Middle Ages. It was so cool. It's beautiful, beautiful women. And then from there, I was going to go to Venice, but I was exhausted. I was partying way too hard. Traveling it's tough. It's one of those things. Yeah, you're enjoying yourself, you're on vacation and stuff like that, but traveling on a budget, it's stressful. It's tiring. Trying to see as much as you can. And so anyway, I fell asleep on the train, and missed Venice, and woke up in Bologna, and the guy is Signor, and the Italian guy, Signora, anyway. And I'm like, oh, Bologna? I'm like, no, Venice. He's like, no. I'm like, train to Venice? He's like, no. No more trains. I'm like, oh. Italians are kind of on their own schedule over there. But it was it was awesome. I went to Bologna, just picked a random hostel, had amazing Italian food. It was so good. Um, it was one of the oldest universities in Europe. Is in Bologna, and for some reason it was like they were really into like heavy metal, and that was kind of like the trend over there, at least in Bologna. A lot of heavy metal guys and stuff. And people were just walking around drinking and having a good time. Couldn't speak a word of their language, but I mean I could get by. But just had a blast, honestly. And the wine, it was just food. Anyway, so from there I went to Bologna, made it to Venice. Venice was just like you'd expect. It was just breathtaking. Um, I unfortunately it was pretty touristy, but of course, you know. And from there, flew back to Leadenheath, went back to work. While I was over there, I went to Rome a few times. Been to London. I've been to London like 10 times. It's just a short drive away. Um, been to Paris a couple times, Amsterdam a couple times, and then yeah. So I guess this is a long enough video. Um, if you guys want me to post another one, talk about my trip to Singapore. That was a wild time. Um, we can do that, but I just wanted to make this video. It's been 20 years since 9/11, and since all that happened, it's affected a lot of people. And I'm glad our boys are back home. It's giving me a little bit of closure with some of that stuff. And some guys that paid the ultimate price, some guys that saw some terrible, terrible things. And luckily I never saw direct combat. Thank God. You know, a lot of people who don't understand the military, or they're just assholes. They kind of discredit my service because I was in the Air Force and I didn't see combat. Well, that's fine. Think what you want. But I served. I served with pride. I worked my ass off. And anyway, I guess that's it. Never forget.